Nas has this line, he goes, "My father wasn't a banker, neither was my neighbor. When it came to getting paper, who the hell was gonna train us?" I resonated with that because there was no long-term thinking where I grew up. My life's work is to build generational wealth in our communities. And the way that that happens is putting, capital in the hands of founders that are crazy enough to think they can go and change the world. My first job was working as a doorman. I took immense pride in being a doorman, and there I learned opening up doors for people helped open up doors for me. I did my job with a great attitude, and that eventually unlocked the heart of a resident who presented me with my first business opportunity. He owned a dry cleaning facility, and he said, "Hey, if you can convince someone out there to give you their clothes, I'll clean them for you for cheap, you charge the market rate, and you make the spread." I started hustling and meeting other doormen and saying, "Hey, I know you're the key to the building because I'm a doorman too." So convince the residents to give me their clothes, and that was my initial hustle, and that snowballed and turned into another resident introducing me to the film industry. They were looking for dry cleaning to pick their clothes up at 3 in the morning. And so he said, "What time do you get off of work?" I said 11 p.m. on the dot. He picked me up and he took me to the set of what became my first film account, which was The Wolf of Wall Street. That was my that was my elevator moment, so to speak. That was my kind of big opportunity. We cleaned all the wardrobe for The Wolf of Wall Street, Boardwalk Empire, Law and Order, Person of Interest, White Collar. We would go on to control over 90% of the film and the TV industry in New York City. And I was an 18-year-old kid as a college dropout with no formal business experience. And so this is why I firmly believe that being an entrepreneur is not necessarily about the way the media captures it is like you have to be a business boy wonder or a girl genius. It's more about being a regular person who's got the courage to act on an idea. Right around the time that I sold that company, I headquartered my first business in Harlem. I had fallen in love with the neighborhood, spending a lot of time there. Harlem is a wonderful melting pot of style, culture, and rich history, and I felt like there was a good opportunity to bring a new, young perspective to it. And I thought, man, let's start a monthly meetup. And that meetup quickly turned into something more because the market was really hungry for it. So that became what Co-Found Harlem is, which is this incubator that helps businesses grow. We take no equity, and companies just committed to stay in Harlem after the program, which was 9 months long. So I ran Co-Found Harlem for a number of years. That was my first time helping other companies grow. And I started realizing that for me, the kind of impact that I want to have on my community was investing in companies that could grow and really change things on a broad scale. So I took a step back from Co-Found Harlem because the mission was there, but that was in the right vehicle. I knew that I wanted to grow into an investment fund. And right around the same time, I met my now partners at Harlem Capital, and we decided to pair together and further the same mission with a different vehicle. So all of my experience up until Harlem Capital got me to understand that the playing field is not level. It's really reserved for the elite, so to speak. And we really feel like, hey, the major exporters of culture, we're not being represented in these groups, So our communities where I come from, we are the biggest exporters of culture, of style, fashion, of music, food, and we don't own any equity in these industries. That seemed completely lopsided. That seemed like a broken system. And so my life's work is to build generational wealth in our communities. And the way that that happens is putting, capital in the hands of founders that are crazy enough to think they can go and change the world. We have investments in Los Angeles, in Baltimore, in San Diego, in Harlem. We invested in a company called Paladin, and they created software for legal firms to manage their pro bono services more efficiently. We invested in a cosmetics business called Beauty Bakery. Their main consumers are women of color, and it's founded by a woman of color, so she knows how to kind of resonate with that audience. So the African American community, Black community has $1 trillion of spending power, and we own almost none of that equity. So those $1 trillion are going, to corporations not owned by us. And so we're on this mission to, again, to level that playing field. Now I'm hosting a show for Viceland called Hustle. I got to get out of my world and step into the world of all these different entrepreneurs, from jam makers to micro distillers or apparel companies. I had an opportunity to get in tune again with what it means to start from the ground, from scratch. It was wonderful. And also meeting all these, it takes a really kind of special person to leave their traditional environment and go and do something that by most definitions people would consider kind of weird and sometimes crazy. Those are the people that I like to be around because they're quirky, they're different, they're fresh, and so I enjoyed it a lot. If you ask me who's John Henry, I would say the proud son of immigrant parents who has been working his ass off for years. I want to change the paycheck to paycheck situation for a lot of people because that's what I grew up in. And every day I work towards leveling that playing field.